Hey everyone, Erin here, back with another installment on this book writing journey. And I thought it was a great time to do another installment for a couple of reasons. One, I'm up at Burt Lake. And for those of you who don't know me or know about Burt Lake, this is the place I have been coming to since I was a little kid. This is the place that most feels like home to me. And my family has had a house on a lake here since before I was born. And my parents aren't here during the winter. They usually come during the summer. And so they offered that we could use the house during the winter anytime we wanted. And it's become a great place for me to get book writing done, especially because I can look out just on the other side of this video to a beautiful 25 square mile lake. So I thought as I'm about to go embark on a couple days of writing, great time for an update. The other reason being that I promised that this video journal would be raw and real about the book writing process because I think from the outsider perspective, it looks easy and seamless. And people know that, yes, there are some things that are hard, but what really is hard? What is it really like? And so I want to tell the rawness of what's happened for me in the last couple of weeks because it was really, really intense for me. So last video, I talked about the excitement I have around this concept of making your own map, that it's not about someone handing you the map for what you're going to do, but you're going to build your own. And how do you do that? And at the end of a group coaching call, someone in my program said, maps were not made for getting you somewhere, they're made for taking you home. And I realized, and I think I said this in this last video, that my journey for so many years has been about coming back to home up here in Burt Lake, back to home with family, back to home within myself. Really, really a big journey around that. And so I started writing that. And I wrote this piece where I talked about growing up in Tucson, where the city is surrounded by 4 mountain ranges. And so if I looked up as a kid, I always knew where I was. And my house was at the base of one of the mountain ranges. And there was this rock formation called Finger Rock. It looks like this, literally. And if I saw that, I could look and say, that's where home is. And I wrote this piece also around being discombobulated every time I traveled. I didn't understand how people found home if they didn't have mountains. And the piece continued into exploring what north is and what I believe true north is and magnetic north and how that's very different from the personal development industry. So it's feeling like a good exploration, but it was wandering. It was wandering away from the make your own map concept. And that was okay until I had a one-on-one session with Patty, my book coach. And to set context, I came into that session really raw for a couple of different reasons. One is I had just made the decision to invest in a new business mentor. And in talking with her about what's possible for me, I realized that my message and my vision for where I want to go with the impact I want to make in the world, it's much bigger than some of what I was thinking about for the book around, making your own map. And I was thinking a lot about, well, I've done it to build my business. So it makes sense to write a book about building a business this way. But I have a whole lot more to say about me and my journey and the things I've been through and my gender. And there's just a whole lot more. So I was feeling really excited, but also raw in that like possibility hangover type of way. Like, oh my gosh, this is big. And I had also just completed a very deep 2.5 year relationship with my first coach. And it was a wonderful wrapping up and really a needed next step for me. But I had this panic. I had this panic as soon as she and I wrapped up, which was like, I've built my business. I've been riding my bike, metaphorically. I like metaphors. I've been riding my bike for a really long time. And she hasn't been there to catch me if I've fallen. I haven't had training wheels on. She hasn't been off in the distance. But as soon as it was a, oh, mom and dad have gone inside type of scenario, I asked myself, do I know how to ride a bike? Do I know how to run a business? Um, do I know what I'm doing at all? And here I am investing in this new business mentor. So I was just swirling and having, for a lot of other reasons, some really big emotions coming up for me. So I'm bringing that into my book coaching session with Patty. And we start talking about the book and, you know, the idea of talking about the wilderness and, being in the mountains. We started going down this path of talking about getting lost and survival. And I had this idea a few days earlier about this concept around the 10 essentials. So when you go out into the wilderness, there are 10 essentials that you always bring with you. Even if you're hiking in the park in your local neighborhood, just it's good practice to have the habit of bringing these things. These are things like fire, extra food, extra water, shelter, a first aid kit. And they're all these survival things. And I was thinking, for a few days of how do I bring that concept into my book? And so Patty and I start wandering down this path around survival and getting lost. And I'm thinking about this concept of coming home and being discombobulated. And suddenly it's a very, very different book in my mind. It's the book that probably my soul needs to write. I have so many stories and it's part of my broader message. And so I'm going down this path, and then we're talking about the 10 essentials. And then something Patty said about business book, I think we came back to a concept of mine around high intention and low attachment. And I just broke. I broke down. I was crying. I was like, I don't want to write the business book anymore. My soul is feeling this thing about home. And now we're going down this path, and I have a bigger message. And it was probably way, way more emotional than it needed to be. But all of a sudden, I felt like I was lost again. What the hell is this book? What am I writing? Who am I writing it for? There's the smart thing to do, there's the soulful thing to do. I feel like my soul left the business book, but I'm not ready to write. Honestly, I'm not ready to write the bigger book. Um, it's in me, but I don't have a clarity of what that book needs to be yet. And I really want to get a book out. Not because I need it for anything externally. I've just got a gremlin that wants to get this book out. So I took a step back, for a week, and I said, you know what? I don't need to make any decisions right now. I am in the throngs of all kinds of swirly emotions. I'm not a clear thinker when that happens. I'm not a clear decision maker. I don't want to write the business book. I'm not ready to write whatever this thing is that I'm going down the path of. And what I honestly did, and I didn't even tell Patty this, is I took a step back and said, am I ready to write a book right now? If this book that my soul is calling me to do is not ready, am I ready to write a book right now? And I let that sit. And I let that sit. And I didn't do any writing last week. I didn't do any thinking about my book. It was a week where I was full of clients, and I focused on that. I focused on that part of my business. And here's where I've landed, because I've landed. The beauty of taking a step back and not worrying about it is there's this metaphor I love that Michael Neal says, sometimes what happens is our thoughts, and actually our emotions too, are like a semi has driven past us on a dirt road, and everything's cloudy and jostled and shaken up, and you just can't see anything. And so what you have to do is wait for that dust to settle, and it just settles over time more and more until clarity comes. And so by stepping back and not worrying about if I'm writing a book or what the book's about, I just got clarity. So here's where I am right now. I'm not writing the business book. Oop, I'm hitting some things. I'm not writing the business book that Make Your Own Map was. I'm also not writing yet that book about coming home. It's an important book. It's going to take time, it's going to take care. And what became super clear to me in the days afterwards of this meltdown is that there's still a book in me that really excites me. And it's an expansion of the original book about maps and a contraction from that really deep memoir that talks all about my particular journey. And it has to do with the 10 essentials. So I had this idea come to me in the dust settling of what if the 10 essentials are not about survival? What if they're about creating the biggest adventure possible? And that's been, to be honest, how I have built my business. It's what I have learned to do through my mentors and teachers in the last couple of years. It's how I want to be writing this book. Is I don't want this to be about survival and heaviness. I want it to be an adventure. I want it to be fun. And it's the way I wish I had treated my career for years, back when I was at Microsoft, at Facebook, in my PhD program. And so it's about these 10 essentials. And I don't want to call them mindsets, but they're kind of mindsets. But at the moment, I'm actually able to translate them into fun objects, metaphorically, that you would take on a hike with you. And they're not things you'd actually take on a hike with you, because they're things like your curiosity cap. Think of like Curious George, the man with the yellow hat. It's a Monopoly game piece. It's colored pencils. It's a can of white paint. And I'm not going to say too much about what that means yet, because I don't actually know if those are the 10 essentials. I'm not wedded to them being the 10 essentials. But it's the thing that makes your building of a business, a career, writing a book, tackling that thing you want to do, the biggest adventure of your life. And there's a secret outcome that comes from from doing it this way. And the secret I'm going to let you in on isn't what it really does, is it builds your own trust in yourself. It builds your confidence. It builds your self-love. And it's just freaking fun. And that's what I want this book to be. I want it to be a little irreverent, because as a social psychologist who's been a skeptic my whole life, I find much of the personal development industry stuff I really disagree with. And I want it to be irreverent and talking about my way of seeing the world. And I want it to be light and fun. And I also want to tell my story, because I spent so many years, rather than thinking about how can I climb this mountain in the most fun way, off in a completely different wilderness called the ocean, swimming up from the bottom, trying to relieve pressure. So that's where I'm at with the book. And what's really exciting is in the next couple weeks, I'm going to start nailing down some really exciting things, like a publication date. There's a part of me that believes I can get this out this year. And I'm going to start nailing down title and subtitle. So if you're watching this and have thoughts, I don't know if the title is Make Your Own Map anymore, or if it's the 10 Essentials. And I'm not super clear on what the subtitle is. I can just tell you it's not about building a business, but you can build a business that way. And I'll be nailing down some other things like chapters, which I will share in the coming weeks. So I will leave it with this. It's a little bit of a long video. Apparently all book writers hit a big wall, and holy fuck did I hit one. It was just a swirly emotional experience throughout my whole body. And the lesson I learned was to go back to my 10 essentials and to let myself be in the uncertainty and let the dust settle and come back to my tools. And as I come back to my tools, I feel so much better. And I can't tell you that this is the final book, but I can tell you that I'm further along than where I was last week. And I can tell you that this isn't the only book I'm ever going to write. So, with that, I will sign off for this journal. If you have feedback on what hits you, make your own map versus the 10 essentials, let me know. And I'm looking forward to whatever is about to come so that I can bring installment 3 to the world. Take care, everyone.